It wasn't too long ago here on Unsealed where we opened up a baseball game for the PS2 that was the start of the 2K baseball series for the PlayStation 2. This was after a run of World Series baseball on the Sega Genesis, the Sega Saturn, the Sega Dreamcast, and now that Sega had gotten out of the hardware business, they were set to publish their baseball games elsewhere. So the game we had opened up was World Series Baseball 2K3 for the PS2. This game was the first to have the ESPN presentation, although it really wasn't at the forefront yet. World Series Baseball was the brand that Sega Sports was sticking with, and the licensing with ESPN was still, the signature was still pretty fresh. Now in this game, just to refresh your memory, one of the biggest things was that although it employed the ESPN-style graphics presentation, they had two different announcers who weren't really the ESPN crew. They had Ted Robinson, who was the play-by-play voice for the Mets, and also Rex the Wonder Dog Huddler was doing color commentary. This was not ESPN's crew, however. At the time, especially for Sunday Night Baseball, ESPN had John Miller doing play-by-play and Hall of Famer Joe Morgan doing color commentary. So this was a little bit different. It looked like an ESPN presentation or an ESPN telecast, but it didn't quite sound like it. This was, however, just the first game in the series. The next year, ESPN branding was across all of Sega Sports titles, including this guy right here. This is ESPN Major League Baseball. You can see the 2K4 designation down there in the corner. Yes, there's an angry-looking Jason Giambi in the corner as well. Here are some screens. I know it's difficult to see because of the camera. What's interesting to note here is that the presentation has changed. They've implemented a lot of things from the Sunday Night Baseball presentation. Both John Miller and Joe Morgan are here doing play-by-play and color commentary. ESPN Gamecast is here. There's ESPN K-Zone, which was basically an analysis of pitches in the strike zone. That made its appearance here. So it felt even more like an ESPN telecast, much more than World Series Baseball 2K3 did. There were new modes as well. General Manager mode was here. First-person baseball was a pretty interesting way to play the sport. We'll be covering other 2K sports titles as we move through, especially we're getting close to football season, so we'll be covering those in later episodes as well. You could play online, and there was just much more here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to open this up. Worth noting, this is Blue Shift Software that's in charge of development for this title. Visual Concepts certainly had a hand in it, but wasn't the lead dog on this. You can see here along the title that, or along the top, that we have the security sticker on here. So this is a brand new copy, and during the time, I believe this is 2004 because it's the baseball year. Yes, so there were still security stickers or seals along the top of the games. So let's go ahead and get this open. Maybe there aren't any opening spots here, so I have to try and get this open the best I can. There we go. And we'll just kind of do it like that. One of these times I really got to look into getting scissors or something. I do think I can just kind of lift this off, which is nice, though. There we go. So we'll just kind of take it out just like that. Fold that up. We'll turn this over so you can see it. And we'll throw that away. And I'm just going to open this up really carefully. There we go. So when we open this up on the inside, you can see that Jason Giambi, again, prominently featured not only in the instruction manual, but also on the disc itself. I don't talk about this a lot in these Unsealed videos, but I always like the fact that there was a memory card holder up here. So you could put your memory card in here, especially if it was a game that required a lot of memory card space, and you'd always know where it was. I always thought that was an interesting way to do it. Let's go ahead and take a look at the instruction manual really quick. The instruction manual is in black and white. It is not in color. It is a manual that is about 20 pages in length. And it's basically, it is the instruction manual version of stereo instructions. A lot of button assignments, a few screenshots here and there talking about playing online, talking about some of the gameplay modes, some credits here as we should see. You definitely want to know who put the game together. And of course, we have some ESPN branding here, or some ESPN advertising, where you could get ESPN the magazine if you were so inclined. And then on the back, we have Allen Iverson promoting ESPN NBA basketball, which was already available. I believe that this was the last of the 2K4 series before development shifted to the next sports year. So I think that that's pretty interesting. My memories of this game, honestly, at the time, I was writing reviews pretty regularly, and I was already pretty much entrenched as being a sports-related guy. When sports games would come out, I would usually be the one to be tapped because I was the one that was interested in them. Unfortunately, with sports video games, you either really like them or you really don't. It's very binary. There are very few video game players that kind of tolerate sports games but aren't really fans of them. Unless, of course, you're talking about your seminal titles like NBA Jam, NFL Blitz, these arcade games that are playable by just about anybody. Tecmo Super Bowl is another one. These games, because they're playable by almost anybody, even fans that aren't into sports games can play them. But when you're talking about simulations like these, you either really like them or you really don't. And I was in the camp that really does. And honestly, I still really do, despite the fact that a lot of sports games today are much more simulation oriented and a lot more complex, so they're more difficult to play. I definitely like the presentation in this game. If you haven't seen the presentation, I encourage you taking a look elsewhere on YouTube to check it out. Because Sunday Night Baseball was a thing, ESPN was not in the embattled position that it is today. So watching those telecasts on Sunday night, you felt like you were watching the telecast of a game. And it was very possible. I know my mom did it once or twice, walking by and seeing me playing a game and thinking that I was watching it on TV and wanted to know how I got cable in the bedroom. So that was kind of a funny anecdote. So that really stood out to me. I really wasn't the biggest fan of the gameplay, honestly. I was more of a high-heat baseball kind of guy. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy of that to open for Unsealed, but that lent itself more towards all kinds of play. It didn't go over the top in terms of presentation, but was much more accessible and just a better gameplay engine, I thought. And that was it, really. You had this, you had MVP Baseball. Unfortunately, I don't have any of those to open. That's also a fantastic series, and it's really right there with the High Heat series. And then you have the 2K series, which is definitely playable, definitely good, but I think the thing that stands out the most about the 2K series, especially when ESPN took center stage, was the presentation. Certainly important, and because I'm such a stickler for presentation, I talk about it all the time when I open these sports games. It's certainly a pretty big deal to me. So we have two more games in the MLB 2K series to open up. We'll be doing those soon to try and wrap that up. I'm probably going to save one for the World Series, and if you know the progression of the titles, you'll understand why I am saving it for then. But we'll definitely get to MLB 2K5 at a later time. In the meantime, if you have played any of these 2K baseball games, I'd love to hear your experiences with it. If you've seen video on YouTube, what do you think of the presentation? Is presentation even a thing to you? Are you more interested in gameplay? Go ahead and talk to me. Let me know what you think, and I will react to you as quickly as I can. My pile here is starting to dwindle a little bit. Unfortunately, that's kind of the way things go until the school year starts up, and then we'll try and replenish some of this pile. But I have plenty more to get to, and that means plenty more episodes of Unsealed in the future. Until the next time, my friends, as always, thank you very much for watching. See ya.